What happens when the most socially formative years of a child's life are spent in isolation? What happens when playgrounds close, classrooms go silent, birthday parties disappear, and friendships becomes pixels on a screen? Well, today on The Bad, the Ugly, the Good and Healing You, episode 10, part 2 of our Loneliness in Loud Time series, we're going to be talking about loneliness in kids and teens and how the pandemic didn't just interrupt their routines, it interrupted their emotional development. Coming up next.
He placed this voice within me, and I'm answering his call. I choose light when life feels broken. I choose faith when hope feels small. This is my destiny to speak healing, hope, and love. Yeah, I've answered his call.
Welcome back to The Bad, the Ugly, the Good and Healing You. I am your host, Dr. Janita Griffin, also known as Doc G. And this is a conversation that is so important. Last week, I covered loneliness in general as it relates to what's occurring in the world right now. Today, I'm going to be covering loneliness in children and teens. It's heavy because I feel like it's heavy with adults, but with children, it shapes identity. It can take a whole different type of life of its own if it's not counteracted with our children. So, getting into it, let's start with the bad. What did the pandemic take from our kids socially? Let's talk about what actually happened. During the pandemic, schools closed, the sports were stopped, youth events were paused, milestones were canceled. My daughter, and I said this before, she was in fifth grade when the pandemic started. And then she was in high school when they actually went back to school. So much was taken away from her, particularly she talked about going camping. Most children, when they're in the fifth grade, they have this celebratory event that they all go camping at Camp Smith in the area. And she missed it. She was not able to go. And I recall this goes back to when I was in elementary school. We went to Camp Smith in the fifth grade and I loved it. It was such an enlightenment to go and experience, to just kind of be with your fellow students and at the campfire. It was just so much that I've appreciated with that experience. I wanted to go back, so I was wondering why couldn't we go back? That was taken away from her, and I feel really bad that she did not have that experience to be able to go to Camp Smith with her class. So that was something that was taken away from her, and I feel like it did affect her. I feel like with children and teens, peer interaction socially as they go about their stages of life in their grades, social development is not extra for children. It's not an extracurricular activity. It's not something that should be given as a reward. It is something that is needed, and it is something that happens to where they develop social skills, communication skills, just so many skills that they develop that it's needed. Kids learn emotional regulation, they learn empathy, they learn conflict resolution, tone recognition. They also learn nonverbal cues when in proximity of another child. They learn how to kind of bounce back and deal with rejection, friendships. They learn so much that it is not extra, it's necessary through that interaction. No screens. This is nothing that a screen can help them with. They need that close proximity where they can develop these skills. And I feel like when those interactions were removed during the pandemic, it minimized so much where something critical stalled. A lot of children are set back to where they just do not have the social skills, and they have so much anxiety around it that we really need to focus and look at how can we change a lot of this. And this is why this topic is so important. We need more youth programs to where it is essentially focused on this. So I want to first start with a little research statistics for you. And I want to talk about that because I feel like you need to be aware of what the actual research is saying about what took place, and as a result of COVID, what our children lost and how are they dealing. So in 2023, the US Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health epidemic, especially highlighting its impact on youth mental health. Loneliness is something that a lot of our children are going through. The CDC data shows significant increases in adolescent anxiety, depression, and emergency room visits related to mental health post pandemic, having panic attacks, having so many issues, increased rise in suicidal ideation. Many children are experiencing suicidal ideation. They have not lived long enough and they are feeling this way. This is an epidemic. And I want to bring awareness to this to where we can look at having programs to where it can specifically focus on how we can help our children become unstuck, learn those skills, and move forward to where they can be productive, social, and engaging as they go about their lives. Research from the American Academy of Pediatrics noted increased social anxiety and reduced peer engagement in teens returning to in person settings. Studies also show that social isolation during the formative years can impact emotional regulation and identity development. This is something that we have to pay attention. There were several long term studies now showing that prolonged social anxiety and social isolation during adolescence can alter stress response patterns and increase vulnerability to anxiety disorders. We need to look at how we can turn this around, particularly with our girls. But when you look at the research, it makes sense. It makes sense if you don't practice social engagement for a year or more, you don't just bounce back. You don't just go back to stepping in line and picking up without skipping a beat. You don't go back to that. Social skills are muscles, and some muscles weaken if you don't use them. So, as I said before, if you don't use it, you lose it. And many of our kids have lost those skills because they were not engaging in those skills during the pandemic. And although they may have participated where they were on screen, on camera, it's not the same. And so we need to look at developing programs so that they can get past this pandemic era and move forward and put this behind them. Increase screen reliance. During the isolation, devices became their school, it became how kids socialize, it became their entertainment, it became how they kind of even escaped reality, if you will. Many of our kids shifted from relational engagement with other people to where they were engaging in digital stimulation on screen with other people. But the simulation is not connection, it's not the same. And constant strolling does not actually help kids build emotional safety. And we need to kind of look at how to turn this around. Moving into the ugly. Now, when I think of the ugly, I feel like the ugly happens when it goes deeper, when children go into a different space, being isolated, and that is not resolved. I feel like isolation paused friendships and it impacted their identity formation. There is identity development in teens as they grow, and there are so many different theories out there. These teen years, they are years where young people begin to ask the question, who am I? Where do I belong? And who accepts me? Am I different? What group do I fit in? Isolation disrupted that exploration. Some teams came back socially and they were able to kind of pick up where they left off, but some teens became anxious and withdrawn and irritable, and they became overstimulated when they were around other kids after the pandemic. They did not engage in conflict. Well, no one wants to engage in conflict, but they avoided it by muting themselves and being socially awkward. But it's not because they're broken, it's because they lost a lot of those skills and they became rusty. Many children became more dependent and isolated. They're anxious during separation periods. They cling closer to their parents. Others became emotionally distant, hyper independent, and socially avoidant. Both are responses to uncertainty. I feel like when the world feels unsafe, attachment patterns shift, and many of our children form attachment patterns that are avoidant. And we need to look at how we can turn this around. Here is the hidden grief in youth. Children also experienced missed graduations, they experience missed social seasons, sports seasons, missed dances, missed social rites of passage. They missed so much where they were not able to learn those skills. I mean, I remember like my sixth grade dance, my eighth grade dance. Many of the kids were not able to have that. And we came back from the pandemic as parents and as adults, not putting that into consideration. We did not think about that. It's almost as if maybe the kids should have all stayed back at least a year to where they can develop a lot of those skills. Sad to say, but some kids could have benefited from an extra year in elementary school or an extra year in middle school, but we are a society of not actually looking at the emotional functioning of our children. We are a society of just progression and moving forward. And we're figuring because we move forward as adults, we're forgetting what it was like as children, that we're not even considering that. And that is a problem. And we need to look at how we can correct a lot of this. Okay. So, moving further, many weren't given language for that grief when they went back to school and the schools opened up. So many kids turned into having irritability, they were defiant, withdrawn. There were so many mood changes. It was very difficult. And sometimes, what looks like an attitude is just essentially unprocessed loss. And we didn't go through that with our children. We didn't look at how we can support them in that way. But let me pause here. I want to kind of give you a snapshot moment because sometimes what looks like disrespect is actually development. When your teen is moody, questioning you all the time, pulling away, or acting like they know everything, it's not always rebellion, it's identity formation. So, moving into one of the developmental theories that I want to talk to you about, and that is Eric Erickson. And he talked about the identity versus role confusion, where this is a stage where teens are trying to find out the answer to that big question, who am I? And in order for them to figure that out, they have to test boundaries. But there's something else important. The emotional center of the brain develops faster than the decision making center. And so that's why Arguments escalate so quickly because the impulse control in many teens are not fully there yet. And it's biology, it's not just behavior. And here's the part that parents need to hear. Even though your child pushes you away, they still need emotional security. They're shifting towards their peers during this time, but their anchor is the parents. So instead of asking, why are they acting like this? We have to try looking at asking it a different way and asking ourselves what developmental need is underneath this behavior. Are they seeking independence or are they seeking reassurance? I feel like parenting teens, it's about guiding their development. And before we continue into the good, I want to show you an example. I want to show you a short role skit in which this is going to show what internal dialogue could look like for teens during this stage. And the purpose is to kind of just normalize the loneliness and what some teens may feel. So stay tuned.
I don't know how to talk to people anymore.
You're weird.
Everyone else seems fine.
You're behind.
I just don't want to feel alone.
Many teens aren't dramatic. Many teens at that age, they feel like disconnection is actually scary for them, and disconnection actually feels like a threat. Let me show you something else because sometimes what looks like an attitude could actually just be loneliness. So, in the next two skits, I'm going to show you the reactive parent approach as well as the regulated parent approach.
What is your problem? Why are you always in your room? Why are you snapping at everybody?
I'm fine.
No, you're not fine. Your attitude is terrible. You need to fix it.
Whatever.
You see, that conversation just shut down connection. So now let me show you a better approach, a more regulated parent approach. Hey, can I ask you something?
What?
I've noticed you've been quieter lately and a little more irritated than usual. I'm not mad. I just want to understand.
I don't know.
Okay, let me ask differently. Have you been feeling alone lately?
Maybe.
Is it school, friends, or something at home?
I just feel like nobody really gets me.
Thank you for telling me that. I may not understand everything, but I want to. Did you notice the difference? Sometimes a parent just have to observe, regulate their tone, name the loneliness, don't shame, and ask open-ended questions. That's all it takes to kind of open up a dialogue between you and your teen. Now, I feel like sometimes teens don't have that emotional vocabulary to say I'm lonely or to even verbalize how they're feeling because let's keep it real. A lot of adults don't. So, how can we expect our teens to kind of be able to verbalize a lot of how they're feeling? I feel like it comes out as irritability and irritation. And so maybe instead of asking, why are you acting like that? We could start looking at asking and rephrasing questions and ask, are you hurting? Or looking at how we can be more empathetic in our responses. Even though we're tired and we're irritable ourselves, we have to look at how we can connect on a different level with our teens to where we are helping guiding them with that emotional piece of it and not just necessarily education or productivity getting to the next level. We have to start teaching our children emotions to where they are more aware and naming these things rather than not being able to identify those emotions. Okay, so moving into the good, I feel like with the good, it's more about how we can go about helping our kids rebuild those social skills and that social confidence. The good news is that you can help turn it around, and we just have to be more knowledgeable and aware to where we can give them the tools that they need and encourage them to be able to verbalize and name their emotions to where they can want to try and want to do better. Okay. Young brains are adaptable, but you have to look at rebuilding the skills with intention. So I want to give you some stages Okay. So, first, we have to look at normalizing it and talk to our kids and tell them, hey, this is normal. This is something that happens. You're not the only one that's going through this. And we have to look at helping them see that because it makes sense if they're having social difficulties and feeling like they're weird, and it may feel uncomfortable to them right now, but they can do better. Two, we got to reduce the performance pressure. Not every social situation has to be impressive. We can start small and just encourage little things, short conversations with other kids. Look at helping them get into small groups. We might have to structure activities, play dates, if you will, yes, for teens, and looking at how they can kind of get past being stuck and isolated. Gradual exposure, look at how you can slowly introduce them to where they are having conversations and getting back out there to where they are comfortable and building that confidence to socialize with other kids and with other teens. Number three, model healthy social behavior. Kids learn from watching. So you can't be telling your kid to make friends and socialize and putting them in activities when you're isolating yourself. So one thing, you have to identify that and you have to model that good behavior and put the phone down, make eye contact with them. Practice conversation at home, teach emotional vocabulary to rebuild real world interaction. Encourage your kids to participate in school activities, enroll in sports clubs, volunteer, and attend youth groups, and look at attending small peer gatherings. We just have to keep encouraging that. And hopefully, that is something that they are receptive to. If they are not, then you have just a little bit more work cut out for you in that you have to use the trump card and kind of, hey, when I was younger, my mom made us go to church and participate in the church choir, whether we wanted to or not. I was made to go to piano lessons, and kids were outside playing while I had to be in there practicing the piano. So sometimes you just got to pull that trump card and you just got to make them do that. And consistency builds comfort. Keep a schedule with it, keep encouraging them, and hopefully it will become more fluent for them to where they will start to like it and want to do it themselves. Monitor them without overreacting. Look for extreme withdrawal, hopelessness, drastic behavior changes, sleep disturbance, loss of interest, to making sure that this is not turning into depression. Because if loneliness becomes despair, intervention is needed. And you have to look at enrolling in some type of therapy to kind of help support you in helping your child combat the loneliness and regain social confidence. In closing, if you are a parent, an educator, or a caregiver, this generation did not imagine this type of isolation. We didn't imagine it. And this is how some kids adapted. But the adaptation doesn't necessarily mean that they were affected to a point of no return. You have to ask yourself questions like, am I creating a safe emotional space for my child to talk with me? Am I listening without correcting them or overreacting in a sense? Am I helping them to name their feelings? We have to start teaching our children, whether they want to or not. It's important that we start teaching them. And parents, if you don't know, then it's important that you learn and you go on that journey together. And if your teen is listening right now, let them know that they are not alone. They are not behind. They're not broken. You went through something global. This is something that, like I said, even adults went through, and many adults are lonely from the pandemic and don't know how to recover and haven't bounced back from it. What rebuilding takes is practice, consistency, and effort. And having to rebuild this confidence takes time. And if awkwardness is something that they do feel, it isn't failure, it's their process of healing, and they have to be proud of themselves for taking that effort to put themselves out there to where they want to turn it around and they want to engage and have social interactions. I feel like there's a group for everyone, and you just have to find your group. And we have to encourage our children to find their group and to not give up, practice and put themselves out there. Okay. And that's where a lot of parents can help by encouraging them, putting them in extracurricular activities and groups and clubs, and teaching them to name their feelings and being open with having that dialogue with them to where they can come and talk to you about their emotions and how they're feeling. And I want to let you guys know, I've thought long and hard about this. I feel like a lot of my experiences have brought me to this point where I've worked with children. I did play therapy with little kids. So I work with children, teens, adults, and I'm working with geriatrics now. I feel like I have a wide range of expertise and experience with working with many people at many different stages of their lives. In September 2026, I have decided to launch my kids edition of The Bad, the Ugly, the Good, and Healing You. And I'm going to be helping children learn about their emotions, helping them to build confidence and find healthy ways to express their feelings. So be sure to subscribe and receive those notifications so you don't miss it. And if your child is struggling with loneliness and their emotions in general, and they can use some support, have them subscribe so that we can look at how we can turn this around. I'm using my expertise in my, small platform, and hopefully it will grow to where we can help our youth and we can turn a lot of this around and help humanity in general. That's my calling, and that's what I want to do. I want to help humanity, and I want to do my part. So, that said, this is The Bad, the Ugly, the Good, and Healing You. I am Dr. Janita Griffin, also known as Doc G. Tune in for my episode 11, and that will be Loneliness in Loud Times, and it's going to be young adults and college students. Thank you for sitting with me. Signing off. Love you, be good to you, and expect great things for you.
He placed this voice